Good evening, it's Jules Wyman here from juleswyman.com, and I apologise, I'm doing my usual flick around at the beginning, and I know for many of you that takes a while for you to get to see that I'm live anyway, or the video is live. Hopefully I'm going to be live for quite some time to come, but I have, I've had some good fun and I've had some exciting things happening in the last few minutes, which I'll share with you in a moment as we wait for a few more people to join and join us live, which is what so many people do every Monday night, which is fantastic. And I'm fiddling because just before I came on the call as well, something exciting that happened made me grab a pen and paper and scribble some notes down. And obviously I had my notes ready for the session. Hey, Shelley. But I didn't have a spare note to write these things down that of this exciting thing that's just happened. So I can see that I cannot see. I know that Shelley's just come on and said hi. But I actually cannot see whether this is going live at the moment. Yes, it is. Fab. Excellent. So I'm in the office again with the new decor. So if there is some background noise and even internet challenges, then bizarrely enough, it's worse in the office than it is at home. But this also means that there's background noise outside. At the moment, there is actually, if you're in around York, there is a young lady. I need to find exactly where she is because I can't see her at the moment. All I can do is hear her. But her busking is amazing. It sounds like she's on a ukulele. But yeah, she's absolutely sounds fantastic. So if she's still there when I leave this evening, I don't know how many loose coins I have in my purse, but I shall definitely be sharing them with her or giving them to her even on my way home if she's still there. So for those of you that are joining live, welcome. Do drop down and say hi now that you're here, as Shelley has so beautifully demonstrated. And I'm going to do what I'm going to invite you to do as well, which is to it, just as when you've been to a restaurant or seen a movie that you like. I can't type and talk at the same time. I should know this by now. Come and join the conversation. So I'm posting that to my own page and would invite you to do the same so that you can invite people along to the conversation. And also, if you can tag people directly, you can share the page to yours. You share the video to your page. All the usual ways that Facebook works, you can use in this Facebook Live as well. And if you're joining for the first time, I'm just going to see if I can lower that down so you don't have to look at too much of the ceiling. Hey, Steve, that's a new name. Not used to seeing you here, so it's lovely to have you here as well. And so basically, the way that this evening works is that I bring a topic to the table for us to have a conversation about, and you can join in as much as you want to. And obviously, the more that you join in, the less it's going to be me talking, and that's what I want to invite us to do. So please don't wait for me to ask you a question. Hi, Susan. Gosh, we've got people joining us from all over the globe. Don't wait for me to invite you to type in. Please just feel free to do that immediately. And I would also say, first timer Steve, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. What I would do is, as I go through what we're talking about this evening, and the topics come up either through my one-on-one work with clients, and it's just themes that I notice that are popping up regularly, so therefore bring them to the table. Or it might be that somebody has messaged me directly and asked me a question, which of course you can do too. And all of what I'm saying here, even though I'm directing it at the people that are live here on the call right now, I'm also inviting those that are watching the recording. Now, I know these videos get anywhere between 200 and 350. One of the ones that I did last week had over 1,000 views. So I know that people do watch these on repeat So I know that one of my clients watches it on Tuesday morning while she's getting ready for work. So all of the things I'm inviting you to do, the shares, the likes, the comments, etc., do it if you're watching the recording as well, because I will come back. I get the notifications in the same way that I would do if it's live. So please do comment, and I will come back and I will connect or answer your question or whatever it may be that you're sharing. So whether it's live or whether you're watching it on the replay, you're more than welcome to comment and not necessarily wait to be invited, basically. So I think that's most of the housekeeping things. Now, interestingly enough, this time last week, I was getting kind of excited about the competition that I was running and the fact that I had a little pot with people's names in, and I was going to get the opportunity to pull somebody's name out of the hat and share that and share all the prizes, more than £600 worth of prizes I shared with the winner last week. And literally, I think it was about 10 minutes or so before I came on here, I went onto Facebook and there were some notifications, and I looked down and I've won a competition, which was really lovely. So that's been a wonderful thing I wasn't expecting. So I need to go and have a look at the wonderful video that has been done analysing this page actually and giving me feedback, which is great, because my whole aim and the reason that I'm doing this and why I do this regularly every week is because I want to reach as many people as I possibly can with the information that has made such a difference in my life. And as I share it with clients, be that one-on-one or in workshops or in talks, is that I watch this happening, and yeah, it's so important for me anyway, I think, to be able to share that. So having somebody taking their time out and utilising their skills and giving an analysis of this page so that I can then do some tweaks and changes on it and get connected with even more people. It's fantastic. So what a great competition to have won. So, and we also just had, it was obviously a bit of a busy week having the competition, and then we had the flash sale of the trust system. So I'm hoping those of you that wanted to get that, managed to grab the 50% off that finished last night. And if you didn't, soz, it was a flash sale. So one of the things that I have noticed, that the saying of, about thinking before you speak is something it's nothing to do with me being a coach. I heard this very much growing up. I don't know whether it was something specifically that my parents or grandparents said, or whether it was teachers, or where it came from, but I do remember it being said quite often directly to me. And I think a great part of that was because, especially as a teenager, I know I was very reactive and probably didn't even let the other person finish the end of their sentence before I was in with my comeback. And there was certainly no thought involved, especially not conscious thought anyway, involved with whatever my reaction was. There was no response time. And it was something that I got thinking about. And as I'm talking about this, I'd love to know what your thoughts are, your immediate thoughts are on the phrase about thinking before you speak. So just jot those down there whilst I grab a swig of water. What do you think about that phrase? I do feel like I'm being serenaded with that lovely busker outside. It's really great. So whilst you're typing in some of your thoughts about what you think about that, and I know that Susan, for example, you just put on the other video, and actually I'm just going to check, see if anybody else is commenting on that one at the moment. Not at the moment, which is great. But Susan was saying that, whilst she's heard the phrase, it's sometimes if something comes into her head, the moment it's in her head, that's it, it's out of her mouth. And one of the reasons I wanted to invite us to think about this was because I think the phrase is, I think before you speak, is very often used in the context of instructing us to think about how we speak to other people, which is extremely important, I think, so that we can look at how best we can lead, how best we can influence, and have an awareness of the impact that we can have on others. So I think thinking before we speak is an important thing to flag up and to do. But if we're only referencing it or using it as a reference point to think about how we communicate with other people, then we're not bringing an awareness we're not bringing an awareness to how we are speaking about ourselves or speaking to ourselves. And I think that thinking before we speak excuse me, it is only water, honestly, I promise. That it's a two-way street. Not only do we need to be aware of thinking about what we're going to say before we say it, in relation to thinking about the influence or impact that could have on others, but also we need to think about that impact on us and how we talk about ourselves. Because if you think about it, many of us will be brought up with the phrase of sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, I'm pretty sure that every single one of you on here will have had somebody say something at some point, probably a good 5, 10, 15 years ago, that you still remember and still smarts a bit. So we know that words are powerful, as well as getting bruised. The bruises can heal, but those words still, they stay there, right? Shelley says, I observed a classic example at work. It's something I've heard throughout my life. And like you, not really sure where I learnt it, as I was always a very shy teenager. Thank you, Shelley. But we have to recognise that words are powerful, and the way that we talk to ourselves and about ourselves is really important. So there's a quote actually by Rudyard Kipling, which is something along the lines of, words are the most powerful drug used by mankind. I don't think I've taken that out of context. I think that's the full quote. And what I remember from that when I first read that is I was really intrigued by the language of the word, of relating words to drugs, because they can be addictive, they can be empowering, they can be disempowering, they can harm, they can be helpful. There are so many different layers to words. And what I would like to know from you, what I'd be inviting to know from you this evening is, if you were going to be really honest, and if not, that means that you're lying, but if you were going to be really honest with yourself and be happy to share below this, what word or words or phrase do you know that you use that disempowers you? In other words, so there's somebody who's extremely saying little is more powerful than talking jabber. I like that, Steve. There's somebody who is very dear to me who will refer to herself if she gets something incorrect or wrong, or even coughs. If she coughs or sneezes for more than 3 or 4 times in a row, she will refer to herself as a silly cow, or stupid cow. And it's phrases like that, or words such as, well, no, I'm not going to give you that one just yet. I would love to know what are the phrases or words that you know that you say that are actually putting you down, that are disempowering you, that are not helpful to you. And it might be internal dialogue, or it might be how you describe yourself to others. So just jot some of those down. Or it may be that these are phrases, like I'm saying with this particular person who's very dear to me, is that I'm really conscious of hearing how she speaks about herself, to herself, about herself. So it's a phrase that I hear very often. And I'm just wondering, maybe there might be some phrases that you hear other people use that you'd be happy to share. Because I don't think that we think about what we're saying often enough. And therefore I think that often what comes out, kind of like you, as you were saying, Susan, on the other video, you know, the moment it pops into your head, it's straight out. Blah. There's no thought process there. And as a coach, I've become more acutely aware of this for myself as a coach over the last probably 4 or 5 years, of really looking at how I can fine tune or clarify or articulate certain questions or whatever it may be, is thinking about that language and being vigilant. And that doesn't mean to say that I get it right, or that I have this sorted at all. You know, I am a work in progress. This is something that I practice too. But this is the having an awareness of what description is going on. And as I say, it doesn't matter whether it's a description that's coming out or it's a description that's in your head. I know that I've shared this on many an occasion, that actually one of my mantras, how I was describing myself years ago, was that I was a fat, ugly, stupid, useless cow. So is there any wonder that at that time I didn't feel great about myself? Because it was an extremely disempowering statement to make, but I didn't even think about it. Steve's saying that's why he got sent off playing football so much. I'm assuming because of all of your jabber. Yeah, the very little of the World Cup I watched, there were a number of players that I sat there thinking, shut up, the decision has been made, stop talking. But it's interesting because if we're going to talk about in a business context, how many sales, for example, get lost because somebody keeps talking and doesn't actually listen to the customer? How many arguments are started at home? That's obviously not a business context, but how many arguments are started at home because whoever they are, be it the parent and the child or the husband and wife or the husband and wife and wife, whatever it may be, that they're not actually listening to each other and they're not thinking before they say what it is that they want to say. But equally, how much of that conflict is going on in here? So there's a whole range. I do a whole module just on language in the Leading with Belief program, which I shall put the link for down here. I'm not sure I can talk and type ever. No. Even just pausing to say that, I did a mistype. So the language is so important that, as I say, I spend a whole module going over language in the Leading with Belief program. And what I wanted to share with you this evening is rather than, and especially as there's not a huge amount of conversation coming the other way at the moment, which is fine, there is one particular word that I want to flag up to you, mainly because I had a conversation with a client, actually it was 3 clients last week that it came up with, but it was one very prominent one, and I know that that person does watch these, so if you're watching them, then you know what I'm referring to, because in the conversation was around should. And there was a lot of, but I should do this and I should do that and I shouldn't have done this and I shouldn't have done that. And there was a lot of this shoulding all over herself. And it's a very common word that most people, it's become habitual. It's one of those things that just, if we're not stopping to think before we speak, we're on automatic. And when we're on automatic, it's kind of like the guys on the football pitch. With their jibber jabber, is that they're not thinking. It's just this kind of like machine gun of trying to get out of this and saying what they can as quickly as possible, and it's just coming out. There's no thought process involved with it at all. Whereas and it's the same thing in this conversation. What happens often in coaching sessions, because people are opening themselves up, they are being vulnerable to having a deep conversation, an honest conversation, that what that enables is a lot of that automatic thinking and dialogue comes to the surface, because they're not thinking before they speak. It beautifully comes out, which is helpful. It may not be comfortable, but it is helpful. And when this word should comes into our dialogue, and it doesn't have to be external, it could just be internal, that we're going over and 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 shoulding that repetitive behaviour. Will you tell me, if you use that word, which I'm pretty sure that most people do, having done work with the hundreds of people that I have, is that you tell me, how do you feel, not what about anybody else, how do you feel when you use that word? Let's have some thumbs if you feel fantastic, you feel great, you feel inspired, you feel motivated. But if when you use the word should or shouldn't, as I say, either internally or externally, sad face or angry face, if you don't feel good. Because my assumption is that the majority of people don't feel good. And whenever I've asked about this word and the impact that it has on people, is most people think it's a very heavy word and it's an uncomfortable word. So I'm just wondering what would happen if you started to think before you speak in relation to that word, and that you could utilize it. You could look at how you could change that. And maybe you could replace it with could or can. But recognizing that word is not an empowering word. And the reason I'm so certain about its disempowering qualities is because of the root of where it comes from, which is an Anglo-Saxon word, which was originally spelt SCOLD, and sometimes with an E on the end. So it was pronounced scold. And obviously over time it has evolved as a word. But when we use the word should, it's very disempowering to us, because usually should comes with a whole bunch, and shouldn't comes with a whole bunch of rules. And very often those rules we haven't actually sat down and created ourselves. They're ones that we've taken on board from whether it be the well-meaning big people we grew up with, so our parents or whatever it may be, or grandparents or guardians or teachers, or it may be that we're involved in the religious world, or sports or drama, or whatever it may be, the arts, is that if we've learned that word and then learn all those rules without even thinking about it, they're in the back of our head, and it comes out without thinking, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? Shelley says, it makes me feel low if I use the word should. It takes away positive energy. To me, it's like it's the difference between a lightness and a heaviness. And it's very similar. I tend not to use the words positive and negative, because you can't have one without the other in that sense, and I'd rather not use those words. But to me, it's more of, do I feel light when I think about that should, or do I feel heavy when I think about that should? And it's like, because it comes with a whole baggage of those rules, and unless you stop and think about it and ask yourself, well, what are those rules? Then you're just going to get caught up in this shoulding world. And without realizing it, you're going to be disempowering yourself. You're going to be feeling negative energy, in your terminology, Shelley, or low energy, or just not feeling inspired. And whether that is to go and make a change in your life and do something different, or whether that is to change career, go for a promotion, apply for a job, or whether that is to start up in business, or whether that is to ask that person out on a date, or end a relationship, start a new relationship. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're shoulding yourself, it's not going to be coming with it with a nice set of rules that are going to be helpful and inspiring. Does that make sense? Let me know if that's making sense. Give me some thumbs up if that makes sense. So Steve's put, should show a weakness in direction. Is that meant to say should shows a weakness in direction? I can understand if that's your interpretation of it, Steve, that it doesn't show your own personal commitment. It shows that it's coming from somebody else. So I can understand that interpretation, absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else? What are your thoughts on? There's lots of thumbs going up now. What are your thoughts on shoulding and anything else that I've said about this evening with regards stopping to think before you speak? Yes, shows. Great. Thank you, Steve. There's loads of them popping up now. So it's obviously making sense. And I am very aware that a lot of people who do watch this don't always want to interact. They do want to just listen to the content and join in later. So thank you for interacting. Thank you for the thumbs. And for those of you that are watching on the recording as well, please remember that you can join in as well. So my invitation really from this is for you to think about what you're going to say before you say it. And also start to question, but kindly, in a curious way, if you do notice the word should, for example, coming up, by whose rules? What are the rules that should comes from? And are they rules that I would be buying into? And do those rules empower me or disempower me? Are they helpful or are they unhelpful or harmful, if you really want to look at it in that way? But my invitation is for all of us, and I include myself in this, is to actually, and you possibly have noticed it this evening, I don't know, I'm very conscious of it, that I'm slowing down a lot and very consciously thinking about what I'm saying before I say it. And that means that my conversation has become a bit more stilted. It means that my conversation has slowed down a bit. But it is giving me the opportunity to check, rather than, as Susan, I keep referencing it, what you beautifully said earlier, that the stuff comes into your head and then it just comes straight out, is rather than that happening and potentially impacting other people, impacting myself in a not a helpful way, disempowering myself, that in actual fact it gives me the opportunity to get really clear on what it is that I want to say and check in as to whether it's helpful to me and the other person. And if not, how can I say it in a different way? What would be helpful? So I'm hoping with all that's all made sense this evening. I'm hoping that that's given you something to think about. Steve has said, for a first time, Steve, I love your interaction. Correct use of words are critical in winning a debate in any situation, and particularly in written communication. And it's something that, as I say, from my perspective, I hold my hands up. It is definitely a work in progress. It's not something that I was taught or even really excelled at school. So it is something that I think I'm continually looking at developing and fine-tuning and looking for the accuracy and the clarity in what's being said and what I'm thinking more than anything else, because of the impact that it can have on me and therefore the impact it can have on others. So I'm going to wrap up there. Look at that. Bob on time. That's unusual. So thank you very much for those of you who joined in this evening, and please do remember that if you are watching this on the recording, you can still join in as much as everybody else has been, or even more if you want to. And if you do have a particular topic or question that you would like me to bring to the table, then please do let me know. Email me, jules@juleswyman.com, or you can bob your question straight beneath here, or you can message me direct on this page, whichever is your preferred modality. And I look forward to catching up with you next week. I know that my time is coming to an end because I can hear the ghost man ringing his bell. Katie said, a bit late joining tonight. I've been at the gym. Hello, how are you? I'm good, thank you, Katie. How are you? Wish I'd have been at the gym actually, but not quite yet. Steve says university graduates haven't got a clue how to communicate in a business environment, particularly written documents. What I'm finding fascinating actually, Steve, is that what I'm finding interesting is because of the generational and the changes in, this is a whole nother topic, because of the generational changes and the way that generations interact specifically with technology, I think it has changed our communication quite dramatically. And I think we're going through such a shift as human beings that it's going to take us a few, probably decades, for that to all settle down and for us to work out how that all fits, because it's changed so much. So yeah, I'm not surprised that you notice it in what you do. There's loads of thumbs going up there. So yeah, it's changed so significantly, and who knows how it's going to unfold. So thank you for that, Katie. I hope you had a great time at the gym. All the others that are here, thank you very much for joining this evening. And as I say, remember to message me if you have a question that you would like to bring to the table. I could tell you, I'll give you a heads up actually on next week, because it's something that, again, comes up a lot, and it's something that I think needs to be addressed. And especially in relation to your confidence, it's a confidence killer. So if you haven't been through any of the programs, the online programs, even the 7 Keys of Confidence, which you can get for free on my website, juleswyman.com, I do talk about it in that as being one of the confidence locks. But it's the myth of imperfection then. That would be great. The myth of perfection, because so many people get caught up in perfection and the need for perfection and the implications and all of the things that then creates: control, procrastination, imposter syndromes, all of these different things. So that's going to be the topic for next week, the myth of perfection. So mark it in your diaries and make sure you join me next week. And I'm now off to go and watch the video. Well, actually, I'll go home first. I'll actually give myself the evening to go home first. But then I'll be watching the video of the competition that I won, that's given me the feedback on here. So again, thank you very much. Great to have you here. Thank you, Steve. Great presentation. Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Bye.